the rebels, who are all, in this really twisted way, serving his grand design.
It's an incredibly complex, almost horrifying tapestry of control, loyalty, and engineered betrayal, all woven together by a creature who operates on a timeline that's just incomprehensible to normal humans.
Let's start at the beginning of the end then, right? The physical transformation of Leto II. I think that's the entry point into understanding his whole philosophy. He is physically, biologically, mentally something profoundly other. We really have to detail this monstrous amalgamation of man and sandworm.
Yeah, and that transformation, it speaks volumes about the sacrifice required for his power. The sources really emphasize that this process, allowing the sand trout, the infant form of the sandworm, to completely cover and fuse with his body, this was a choice his father, Paul, actually refused.
He couldn't face
He
it.
couldn't face it. Paul feared the loss of humanity. Leto embraced it because he judged it necessary. He literally traded his human form for something closer to a geological process.
And the physical scale alone is vital to grasping the distance between the emperor and his subjects, isn't it? We aren't talking about a man in armor. We're talking about this colossal segmented creature, often referred to just as the worm. The sources specify he measures approximately 7 meters long, that's roughly 23 feet, and weighs around 5 tons. Just enormous.
And that size isn't just intimidating, it's insulating.
Yeah.
He has biologically engineered himself into a siege weapon. He retains only his human face, arms, and hands. And that duality, I think, is deeply symbolic.
How so?
Well, he kept the tools of communication, the face for expression, the hands for manipulation, for writing. But the rest of him is this massive, impenetrable biological engine. He gained immunity to aging, resistance to conventional attacks,
Yeah.
a simple bullet or knife. It's meaningless to him. He has truly engineered himself out of the constraints of human law, human warfare.
That physical invulnerability seems to mirror his overwhelming mental inheritance, too. He isn't just powerful because he's like a giant worm. He's powerful because he carries the consciousness and memories of all his ancestors. This vast mental archive gives him a perspective that just transcends any individual human lifespan.
And this is the source of his, well, you could call it a god, but it's rooted in a kind of reality for him. See the future. He holds this continuing broken chain of memory, spanning the entire history of the human race,
Wow.
including failures, all the near extinctions, moments of profound self-doubt that his prescience reveals. So he perceives himself as the sole conscience steering humanity because he alone has curiously lived through every possible path or failure simultaneously.
Yeah.
He knows the extinction pathways by heart.
And since it isn't just control, but stasis like freezing the universe long enough for his plan to ripen, he has to maintain this rigid totalitarian peace. And he does this primarily by establishing imperial control of source monopoly, despite melange.
Yeah, the control here is absolute, and it's deliberately manipulative. Controls the universe's largest, practically accessible style. Monopoly dictates every single facet of stellar society. Just think about the implications.
Like huge.
Space travel grinds to a halt because the guild navigators need masses of spice for their prescient folding of the Bene Gesserit's critical abilities, their internal truths, their breeding program. They're also completely spice dependent.
So by rationing this resource with, surgical precision, Leto has effective freeze on technological progress and star travel for 1,000 years. The universe is literally carved into compliance.
Exactly. It's a net stagnation, as he sees it.
Yeah.
But you know the cruelty of it, right? Imagine living under an emperor who has deliberately throttled innovation and mobility for millennia. This is the very definition of tyranny, ultimate survival. It's a chilling use of economic control to enforce social and, really, spiritual suppression.
And this external control is mirrored by the biological transformation of the planet itself. Arrakis, formerly the harsh desert world of Arrakis that we remember, is now largely a cultivated green paradise.
Yeah, the sources emphasize this shift as a sign of Leto's total mastery over nature itself. The terrible wild desert, which was the source of both human suffering and the birthplace of Muad'Dib's power, has been tamed. There remains only this minuscule controlled desert remnant called the Sarir.
Just a tiny piece left.
A tiny piece. And this remnant is Leto's personal sanctuary and fortress. It is the last vestige of the planet's wild past, but it's also a symbol of his own isolation, mirroring, perhaps, the last vestige of his own humanity trapped deep inside the worm.
So he lives within the memory of what the planet once was, while enforcing a peace that has fundamentally changed the nature of both the planet and the people who live on it.
Okay, Let's move from the physical anatomy to the governing philosophy, the golden path. We've established it means survival, but we need to dive into the mechanism of how it achieves this. What exactly is the Altignol, and what's the extinction event Leto is trying so hard to prevent?
Right. The Golden Path is dedicated solely, exclusively, to ensuring that no cataclysm, especially not one arising from prescient vision itself or maybe self-aware technology, can ever eradicate the human species entirely. Leto had witnessed the absolute limit of prescience. His father, Paul, saw futures that led to human extinction, and he recoiled from them. He couldn't bear it.
He turned away.
He turned away. Leto chose to live into that terrible future path, specifically to steer humanity away from that final dead end.
Which implies the greatest threat wasn't some external alien invasion, but a specific internal failure of humanity itself. Precisely. Leto saw that humanity would eventually become trapped by its own success, either falling into an endless cycle of self-destruction through technological warfare, which is a fear stemming from the old Balerian Jihad era, the war against machines,
Right, the deep history.
or, more subtly, becoming in the predictable confines of prescience itself. If everyone can see the future, or the powerful can, then all future paths become finite, predictable, and vulnerable to a single unseen threat. Golden Path is designed to introduce chaos, unpredictability, and evolutionary change back into the human equation.
But the immediate cost of this incredibly long-term strategy is just agonizing. This prolonged, enforced totalitarian peace. It seems to have stripped humanity of its most vital qualities. What are the psychological consequences of 3,000 years of enforced stasis?
Well, the sources highlight a really profound stagnation. When you are completely safe, totally monitored, provided for by a dictator who sees all possible outcomes, you lose the necessity for drive, for risk, for exploration.
Complacency sets in.
Deep complacency. Leto's peace, while stable, is a kind of spiritual poison. The arts stagnate, technological innovation basically dies out, and the adventurous spirit that's necessary for expansion is just choked off. He is consciously murdering the immediate, dynamic human soul to save the eternal, long-term human race, and he knows it. He fully acknowledges his reign as tyranny. He's not deluded about it. He might be the most self-aware monster in all of literature.
And to maintain this brutal, stifling stability, he needs an army whose loyalty is absolute. This brings us to the fish speakers. Now, why an all-female warrior army as the core of his military strength? That seems specific.
It is very specific. Leto's rationale is a deep and maybe, perhaps misogynistic application of his prescient historical knowledge.
Yeah?
He argues that women are inherently better suited as guardians of the Golden Path because, based on his observations over millennia of history,
All those ancestral memories.
all those memories, exactly. He believes their primary biological and cultural impulse favors preservation over endless, destructive, expansionist war. He believes they are less prone to the aggressive, risk-taking tendencies of men that, in his view, led to all the near-extinction events in humanity's past.
So he's engineered a military structure based on his belief that women will enforce peace, even tyranny, because their nature is less inclined toward the kind of total annihilation that defined the old empire. It's a chillingly comprehensive psychological weapon, really.
And it creates an army whose primary motivation is rooted in stability, even though that stability is being enforced through, violence and suppression. They are the ultimate contradiction, agents of brutal suppression whose internal philosophical mandate is preservation of life.
Now, even within this incredibly loyal command structure, there seems to be a necessary internal conflict. This is where we focus on the repeated, critical character of Duncan Idaho Gallo.
Duncan Idaho. He's essential, isn't he? Ultimate engineered wrench in the works. Cloned repeatedly from the original sword master by the Tleilaxu, each iteration serves a kind of dual function for Leto.
Okay.
On one hand, he acts as a vital, sometimes irritating anchor to Leto's humanity, a connection to the time before the worm, and simultaneously, he's a necessary psychological force.
Every Gola, it comes back with that almost genetic loyalty to his name, right? Yet this Kirkin sees Leto for what he is. Destroying roller, as he calls him. That must stop. How does a man reconcile his lord while believing that same lord is the ultimate?
Leto requires his hatred and his loyalty in equal measure. He needs someone constantly testing the system, someone reminding him of the human cost, and someone who embodies that natural, righteous impulse toward rebellion. The sources detail the culmination of this tension, this one key moment in Leto's underground mausoleum. Duncan attempts assassination using a forbidden laser weapon, a las gun.
And that detail about the forbidden technology is huge. It shows the opposition is willing to violate the core tenets of Leto's enforced stability, the Great Convention itself, but the attempt fails.
It fails because of the success of Leto's mutation. His immense speed, which is shocking for his size, coupled with the sheer colossal bulk and resistance granted by sand-trout fusion, allow him to subdue almost instantly. The mutation proves the worm's physical dominance, absolutely, but maybe more importantly, it confirms Duncan's conviction that Leto must be stopped. The cycle the Duncan Gola repeatedly cloned, repeatedly failing in assassination, but succeeding in remindo is essential. Leto in constant righteous human rejection to endure his own terrible burden of knowing the future.
Okay, so the worm needs more than soldiers. He needs a link to the functional human world, the bureaucracy required to run an empire spanning millennia. This falls to Munio Atreides, the chief major domo.
Right. Monio's the closest thing Leto has to, well, a functional family member or a chief cabinet minister. He is a direct descendant of the original Atreides bloodline, and he is fiercely loyal, intellectually committed even to the philosophical brilliance of the Golden Path. He understands the necessity of the 3,000-year plan, even if he, deeply fears and perhaps hates the man enforcing it.
And that loyalty comes with this crippling emotional toll that's really deeply explored in the sources. Monio organizes the vast, suffocating bureaucracy of this tyranny. He manages the rationing, the executions, the suppression of dangerous knowledge, the manipulation of the great houses. He is Leto's key organizer and really his terrified confidant.
His terror isn't just for his life, although there's that too. It's for his soul, I think. Monio witnesses Leto's horrific, often incomprehensible decisions daily. Decisions made with a 3,000-year perspective that no ordinary human can possibly grasp. He understands the necessity of the worm, but he fears the unpredictable nature of the worm's power, its whims. He is utterly trapped, serving a monster he believes is saving the world, organizing terrible acts, and knowing his own family, his own daughter, is subject to the God Emperor's whim at any moment.
And it is his family specifically that produces the critical pivot point for active rebellion. Monio's daughter, Siona Atreides. Her motivation isn't intellectual justification like her father's. It's raw, visceral hatred for the tyrant who controls her world, stifles her spirit, and, as you said, traumatizes her father.
Siona embodies the very adventurous spirit that Leto's peace was designed to suppress. She is the energy, the adrenaline of rebellion in the story. She doesn't just theorize about overthrowing him, she acts. The sources detail this really significant turning point, the heist on Leto's most secure sanctuary.
She and her rebels actually penetrate the deepest layers of the Sarir fortress, and they manage to steal crucial intelligence. The castle plans, yes, but more importantly, Leto's personal encrypted journals. And the descriptive detail here is crucial. These journals were written on heavy Redulian crystal paper.
Yeah, that detail tells us these are not temporary notes. Redulian crystal is designed to last millennia. Leto intended these documents to survive him, perhaps to be his eventual true confession or his historical record for the future. So Siona stole the key to understanding and potentially discrediting the God Emperor's complex motives. This makes the journals the ultimate threat to his immediate control, maybe even his legacy.
The escape itself was brutal, emphasizing the ruthless stakes involved. Leto's security forces unleashed these genetically engineered Dune wolves, to track the group.
And this is where we see the immediate fatal cost of rebellion. Siona is the key runner, carrying that precious Redulian package. Her comrades, Ulo and Kuteg, sacrificed their lives during the pursuit, buying Siona the time needed to escape across the critical boundary of the Idaho River. Their deaths guarantee Siona's survival and underscore her singular importance to the immediate future of the rebellion.
Siona survives, and she makes a vow. Her plan now is to decipher those stolen encrypted journals and expose the God Emperor's deepest secrets to the great powers of the Imperium, the Bene Gesserit, the Guild, the Guilt, the X. If she can reveal his vulnerabilities, his methods, she believes she can catalyze a revolution that will finally crumble his totalitarian regime.
And here we see Leto's genius for manipulation at its most chilling. He doesn't just try to stop the rebellion, he incorporates it into his own plan. He compels Nyla, one of his fanatically loyal fish speakers, to infiltrate Siona's group, and Nyla is ordered to obey Siona's commands completely, without question.
That's psychological torment right there. Nyla's faith in Leto is absolute, yet Leto forces her to serve the very person trying to destroy him. She reports back to Leto on Siona's specific critical plan, which is to steal the Emperor's central spice stock, believing she is performing the ultimate test of faith by aiding the very woman trying to destroy her god.
Leto has essentially turned loyalty into a lethal tool of control. He knows that Siona's plan requires absolute obedience from her followers, right? And he has guaranteed that obedience through Nyla's programmed fanatical devotion to him. By forcing Nyla to obey Siona, he ensures Siona executes the attack precisely how and where Leto needs it to happen. Nyla becomes the ultimate double agent, serving Leto best by serving Siona perfectly.
So the tension is building internally with Siona's infiltration, but externally, the great houses are making moves too. Leto's long peace didn't stop the plotting, did it? We see this dangerous alliance forming between the Twi'lek and the Axis gaining momentum.
Yeah, and the historical context here is really crucial. The Twi'lek are masters of biological manipulation. Think Gulas, face dancers. The Ilaxers, masters of forbidden covert technology. Leto's entire reign is based on suppressing technology that could lead to another devastating, self-annihilating war like the Butlerian Jihad.
Right.
A war that would leave no human trace for his golden path to save. So their alliance represents the resurgence of the twin dangers he fears most: unchecked technological ambition and maybe self-aware genetic corruption.
The Addicts, in particular, launch an attack that bypasses his physical armor entirely. They send a new ambassador, Hootsuite Nori. She's the niece of his old, cunning friend, Melki.
And Hisui is the ultimate psychological weapon. She is genetically engineered by the Addicts to be completely genuine, compassionate, and wise, the perfect antithesis to the scheming, cynical world Leto has imposed for millennia. The Addicts didn't send a political operator, they sent a flawlessly pure human being, specifically designed to penetrate the God Emperor's defenses by exploiting his remaining, deeply buried humanity.
And it works. Devastatingly well. Leto, expecting another cold political maneuver, another Malky, is utterly captivated. Her purity, her warmth, they pierce his centuries-old emotional defenses. This is a tragic flaw emerging. It violently reminds him of the human life, the love, he deliberately sacrificed 3,000 years ago.
He falls intensely and agonizingly in love with Hisui. It's an impossible tragedy, really. The monster who gave up all emotional connection to save the universe suddenly finds this profound, undeniable human connection. And this love, this ultimate vulnerability, becomes the greatest threat to his own long-term plan. He makes the alarming, seemingly impulsive decision to marry her.
Which terrifies Monio.
Terrifies Monio and his staff, yeah. They see the grand strategy possibly collapsing due to raw, uncontrollable emotion.
This sudden surge of human vulnerability makes him an immediate exposed target, right?
Right.
The political plots escalate, leading to that second, very high-profile assassination attempt during the procession to the festival city of On.
Yes. The assailants are face dancers, those shape-shifting spies of the Twi'lek, disguised as innocent museum Fremen pilgrims. This is chaos incarnate. The enemy hidden among the most sacred symbols of the past, and they are using forbidden laser weapons, confirming that the Twi'lek alliance is absolutely dedicated to technological terrorism, breaking the Great Convention.
Duncan's fish speakers repel the attack, but the scene reveals Leto's growing psychological instability. He's enraged by the danger to Haokui and his own painful, heightened vulnerability. He bypasses his own army. He uses the sheer weight of his imperial cart to ruthlessly crush the surviving assailants himself. He acts not as a distant god tyrant, but as a threatened, enraged animal protecting something precious.
This emotional instability is terrible timing, you could say. But Leto knows the Golden Path cannot wait. Before the marriage can happen, he must complete the essential final step of the Atreides breeding program, the brutal trial of Siona.
This is the ultimate test, isn't it? Of survival and philosophical understanding, the Padia. Leto takes Siona alone into the vast, inhospitable Sarir Desert for a brutal survival test, intentionally subjecting her to near-fatal dehydration. This isn't just physical torture, it's the prerequisite for the deepest revelation.
Exactly. When Siona is broken down on the absolute brink of death and rationality, Leto forces her to experience the terrifying ancestral memories of humanity's total subjugation and terror. This isn't just generic technological warfare. This is the specific horror of humanity reaching another evolutionary dead end, the vision that made Paul recoil, where human potential is completely extinguished, not by an external foe, but by its own inescapable genetic and technological limitations, maybe even by prescience itself.
So she's forced to relive the extinction-level reality that necessitates Leto's 3,000-year tyranny. The suffering grants her the inner realization, the understanding of the golden path's absolute necessity. She finally understands that Leto's tyranny wasn't a choice of malice, but an essential evolutionary pressure forcing humanity toward dispersion and, ultimately, survival.
But the trial grants her something even more crucial, something tangible. It gives her a unique genetic advantage. She becomes invisible to the prescient vision of all Theirs, including Leto himself. This is the genetic culmination of the entire Atreides breeding program, spanning millennia.
Wow. The tyrant has successfully bred his own blind spot. Leto confirms Siona is the key to humanity's future precisely because she is beyond his sight and control. She represents true freedom, true unpredictability. The species will survive because she can take steps that prescience cannot reveal, thus avoiding the eternal traps that haunted Paul and enslaved Leto. Okay, so with his genetic masterpiece confirmed, Leto proceeds with the wedding to Hiquinori. He schedules it for the isolated Tuono village, ensuring his own isolation sets the stage for the inevitable conclusion he seems to be orchestrating.
Yeah, the entourage is deliberately small. Monio, Duncan, just a few fish speakers. Every piece is in place, especially Nyla, the fanatical double agent, now ordered by Leto to carry a laser weapon as part of Siona's engineered infiltration and assassination plan. Leto has meticulously manipulated his own demise.
The final assassination attempt occurs exactly as planned, it seems, as the Imperial procession crosses the massive bridge over the Idaho River. This is Siona's plan, executed by the most blindly loyal member of Leto's guard. It's the ultimate betrayal achieved through absolute obedience.
Nyla, obeying Siona's direct command, an act that paradoxically fulfills her ultimate loyalty to the God Emperor by obeying the person he appointed her to obey, uses her laser weapon to cut the plasteel support cables. The bridge collapses, sending the Imperial cart, Monio, Heishinori, and Leto II plummeting toward the water below.
The impact is swift, devastating, and immediately claims the immediate human cost of the Golden Path. Heishinori, the innocent focus of Leto's impossible human affection, is killed instantly upon hitting the water. Monio, the loyal majordomo who served through fear and understanding, is fatally injured.
And this triggers the immediate consuming rage of Duncan Idaho. He witnesses Shui's death, the genuine pure human being he admired, perhaps loved, and Monio's suffering. The human element, the very thing Leto tried so hard to eradicate in himself, just snaps in Duncan. He immediately uses Shui's recovered laser weapon to incinerate Nyla, closing the loop on the manipulated loyalty that caused the disaster. The ultimate act of loyalty by Nyla is met with the ultimate act of human rage from Duncan.
But the true climax is Leto's fate. Impact with the Idaho River is catastrophic because, as we know from the lore, water is the ultimate poison to the sandworm ecology. It is the absolute antithesis of the desert environment he created for himself and needed to survive.
His 3,000 years of sand trout layers dissolve rapidly, violently in the water, and this dissolution releases an unimaginable quantity of concentrated melange essence, the spice, filling the water with this thick blue smoke. This event signifies both the end of the tyrant and the necessary biological rebirth of the planet Arrakis.
Leto, in his final agonizing moments, recognizes that his sacrifice is complete. His massive body is swept away, but he leaves behind the small, dispersing sand trout. This is his final, brilliant biological legacy. These small sand trout will scatter, carried by the water, and eventually renew the cycle of Shai-Hulud, the great sandworms, and thus the necessary spice production on Arrakis. The Emperor dies, but the engine of the universe, the spice, and the condition for continued human existence beyond the Imperium is restored.
And crucially, Siona and Duncan survive the bridge collapse. Leto's final dying instruction to Duncan, delivered somehow from the depths of the river, is stark. Treat Siona well, because she is the one who can save humanity. He knows his genetic masterpiece is now free, invisible to foresight, ready to pursue the goal he